Wow, aren't we lucky to have heard that original recording of a lady searching for the correct key to her house? If you listen very closely, you can hear her say, "Damn it," which, it's very similar to what we might do today searching for the right key, isn't it? Just goes to show how similar we are to those folk back then in the 1500s. Stunning. Hello there, and welcome back to the final couplet with me, Theo Cowan. This week, guess what? Haha, yeah, that's it. We're looking at another sonnet. This time, it's a bit of a milestone. It's Sonnet 55, and I had a little glance over this one. You're in for a treat. This is Shakespeare at his finest. He's got his confidence back, he's flowing, he's bigging himself up. Fantastic stuff. And I don't have anything else to waffle about before we start, so let's just dive in and take a listen to Sonnet 55. Not marble nor the gilded monuments of princes shall outlive this powerful rhyme. But you shall shine more bright in these contents than unswept stone, besmeared with sluttish time. When wasteful war shall statues overturn, and broils root out the work of masonry, nor Mars his sword, nor war's quick fire shall burn the living record of your memory. Gainst death and all-oblivious enmity shall you pace forth. Your praise shall still find room even in the eyes of all posterity that wear this world out to the ending doom. So till the judgment that yourself arise, you live in this and dwell in lovers' eyes. So there it is. And you know what? This time I read that through, just straight through. Often I need a few retakes when I do this. And this one clearly I connect with because it just rolls off the tongue. There was a worrying moment in enmity, tough one to say, and I panicked a little bit, but I got through it. And this is a great one, I think. I love the ones where Shakespeare just bigs his own writing up. Because it's not actually a very English thing to do, is it? I feel like it's quite an American thing, actually, in modern day. Quite an American thing to believe in yourself. We don't like to believe in ourselves much in England. We are very self-deprecating. We put ourselves down. And I think we can actually take a leaf out of the Americans' book. And the Americans have clearly taken a leaf out of Shakespeare's book because he's just saying his writing is incredible and that it outlives wars and everything, which is quite a bold statement. I think we should dive into this and work out what the hell Shakespeare was going on about line by line. So we start with, not marble nor the gilded monuments of princes shall outlive this powerful rhyme. So there it is. He's whacking it out on the table in that first couple of lines. He's saying marble or gold-plated, which is gilded, monuments of princes. So these statues, monuments of princes, even they won't outlive my powerful, amazing poetry. So that's a hell of a statement, isn't it, to start with? So look at all these statues of princes. Yeah, sure, they're great, but they're not going to outlive my incredible poetry, are they? Which, and I've said this before, his confidence is great, but also he was right. These statues have crumbled, and his poetry is still living on to this day, because I'm bloody reading it now in this podcast. Maybe that's what he was thinking about. He was saying maybe one day there'll be this thing called a podcast and someone will be reading and dissecting my poetry and mainly slagging it off. But doesn't matter. All press is good press, isn't it? Even if it's bad. That's the saying, isn't it? Anyway, we continue with, but you shall shine more bright in these contents than unswept stone besmeared with sluttish time. Now, I don't know what he's got against time, but calling time sluttish is a bit of a worry, isn't it? And I did just look up what sluttish meant back in the day, and in the hope that it had another meaning. But it doesn't. It just means the same thing that we think of today. But interesting to call time sluttish, I'd say. It's not the first word I would go to in relation to time. Can time be sluttish? It's a good question. By the way, this isn't a sponsor, but if you are looking for a book to help you work out what words meant back in the day, if you see something in some Shakespeare that you're like, what does that mean? There's this book called A Shakespeare Glossary, C.T. Onions. I don't know if C.T. Onions is the author of this. Is that his name? Quite the name. Anyway, it's Onions. He's done it again. Onions has done it again, and it's a Shakespeare Glossary. So check it out. It's pretty good. Look, I've got it in my hands right now. If I just go to a word at random, here we go. Fashion-monging. That's a good one, isn't it? Fashion-monging. Adjective, foppish. And it gives you an example. And it's saying, here's one, in Much Ado About Nothing, he says, fashion-monging boys. Bloody good book. Anyway, should probably get back to what we're meant to be doing. So he's saying, going back to sluttish time, you will shine, you, the recipient of my poems, my love, you will shine brighter in my poetry than these stone statues that are blackened by time. Sluttish time. I don't think you needed to say sluttish time. There, I said it. Someone had to say it. Cut it out. You don't need it, Shakespeare. When wasteful war shall statues overturn, and broils root out the work of masonry. So this is part of a larger section, but I'm going to break it down. He's saying, when war overturns these statues and fights break up the masonry, so the buildings, so when war breaks out and these statues get all messed up and buildings topple. Now he continues, nor Mars his sword, nor war's quick fire shall burn the living record of your memory. So Mars, the god of war, I believe, with his sword or his quick fires, they won't burn my poetry, my Shakespeare's poetry, and in turn the record of you. So all these statues will fall, all these buildings will topple, things will burn to the ground, but my poetry and the record of you will live on. Gainst death and all-oblivious enmity shall you pace forth. Your praise shall still find room even in the eyes of all posterity, that wear this world out to the ending doom. So basically he's saying generations and generations will hold space for you, will talk about you until the very end of time, to the ending doom. Not a bad thing to say to your lover is that you will be remembered literally until the end of time, until everyone and everything is dead. Not bad, not bad. Honestly, if someone said that to me, I'd go, no, that's not going to happen. But in this case, it's been 500 years or so that's pretty good. Pretty good innings for this bit of poetry. Honestly, I'd be happy if this podcast was remembered next year. That would be a win for me. let alone 500 years. And now I present to you the final couplet. So till the judgment that yourself arise, you live in this and dwell in lovers' eyes. So he's saying until judgment day, when you will be raised up, you will live in my poetry and in the eyes of the lovers that read my poetry, which is a really nice ending, I think. I really like that he said in the eyes of lovers, you know, who are gonna read this and feel that love and draw comparisons. It's all very romantic, isn't it? Very nice. So there it is, Sonnet 55. And it's great that Shakespeare has got his confidence back, because in Sonnet 54, he was gaining it. He was saying, wasn't he? He was saying, you know, my poetry's pretty good. It's going to live on for a long time. And this is a similar topic, really, but grander. He's really got his mojo back, and I'm pleased for him, because if Shakespeare doesn't have confidence, does he go on to write some of the best and most well-known plays the world has ever seen? I don't know. If he's waking up going, oh, I'm a rubbish writer, oh, I can't write, he's not going to go and write Julius Caesar, is he? No. Now, I think it's about time we put this to our story, don't you? If you're here for the first time, I always say this. I like to make a little story that accompanies the sonnets, and they're sort of stupid and fully improvised, so they go on weird sort of tangents. But the thread at the moment is Shakespeare is in love with Ben Jonson again, who is his frenemy. And in the last episode, he's got John Donne in a, you know, the writer John Donne. He's got John Donne in a chest in his basement, because he did previously love John Donne, and maybe he still does in his heart of hearts. But John Donne didn't reciprocate, and Shakespeare said, well, I'm going to put you in this chest and keep you close to me. But he then found out that Ben Jonson loved him, and that kind of swayed his feelings. And so he's been writing sonnets with John Donne to Ben Jonson. And he's promised John Donne that he will let him out of that chest, just as long as he helps him write these sonnets to Ben Jonson, because he's sort of struggling creatively. Anyway, I could go on for ages doing a recap, but go back, have a listen to some. It also, it doesn't really matter. Just enjoy the story. John Donne finishes reading Shakespeare's 54th sonnet that was delivered to him by Shakespeare's cat, Mercutio. He thinks to himself, oh, he loves me. Oh, does he love me? He also likes to say how amazing his writing is, doesn't he? But that's beside the point. Shakespeare loves me and I love him. You know what? I'm going to go and pay him a visit. So he puts on his little coat and his hat, which has 2 ears on it, strangely. Don't ask why. And he steps out of the front door and walks to Shakespeare's house. It's about a 20-minute walk, and Mercutio trots alongside him in the sunshine. Eventually he arrives at Shakespeare's house, and Shakespeare opens the door and says, Ben Jonson, you must have got my sonnet and come running over at once. And Ben Jonson says, I did, Shakespeare. It was beautiful, and I had to come over and say how much I love you. And Shakespeare says, well, I mean, reciprocated, my dude. I love you as well. And that's why I keep writing these sonnets. You're so inspiring. And Ben Jonson says, well, can I come in? And Shakespeare thinks, oh no, I've still got John Donne in my basement in a chest, and Ben Jonson must not know about this, because that is a real turn-off. So he says, now's not a great time, actually, Ben. Obviously, I want you to come in and us to sort of make out and be with each other. But no, not right now. But tonight, I'm hosting a gala event at the Globe. You know the Globe. And Ben Jonson says, yes, of course I know the Globe. Shakespeare's Globe. And Shakespeare says, well, that's nice of you to say, but at the moment it's just the Globe. And Ben Jonson says, well, one day it will be called Shakespeare's Globe. I guarantee it. And Shakespeare says, oh, you're too kind, Ben. You're too kind. Anyway, tonight, the gala event, it's just going to be, some bits and bobs, some plays, some plays I've been working on, scenes from a few little things and some poetry. So if you want to come along, come on down, and there might be a little special surprise for you there. And Ben Jonson says, wow, a surprise for me, that would be marvellous. Fantastic. Well, I'll see you tonight at the Globe. Ben Jonson departs. Shakespeare goes back down into the basement to see John Donne and says, oh, I've done a sort of stupid thing. I've promised Ben Jonson that I was hosting a gala night tonight. And John Donne says, oh, why did you tell him that? You're not hosting a gala night. And Shakespeare said, well, I guess I have to now. So I'm going to put together some pieces, get some actors in. And I thought, maybe you might perform a sonnet, a very special sonnet that I will have written for Ben Jonson. John Donne says, look, I'm in a chest locked up. How would I be able to perform it? And Shakespeare says, well, I'll let you free. Just for this night. And if you do well, then I might let you free forever. And John Donne says, well, if this is the only way that I might get my freedom back, then fine, I'll perform the sonnet. And Shakespeare says, hurrah! Great news! Thanks, John. The night of the gala arrives. I mean, it's that night, so it comes around pretty quickly. And Shakespeare is putting the finishing touches to the gala performance. The groundlings at the Globe are there in their thousands. Can you fit 1,000 people in the standing section of the Globe? I honestly don't know. But there were a lot of people there waiting for this brilliant gala performance that Shakespeare had arranged purely so he could get John Donne to perform a sonnet to Ben Jonson. Shakespeare walks out onto the stage and says, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming. Tonight is a very special night. There's very special people in the audience, and there's some quite magical work that will be performed. So hold on to your hats, and away we go. The performance gets underway with one of the scenes from Romeo and Juliet. It's performed by two young men, and one of them was playing Juliet because men didn't really think that women could act back then for some reason. Shakespeare's waiting in the wings with John Donne still locked in the chest. And Shakespeare says, now listen, John. When I open the chest, you walk straight onto stage, you perform the sonnet that I've written and given to you, and you come straight back and into the chest, all right? I don't want any funny business from you. And John Donne says, but if I do a good job, you'll release me again, right? And Shakespeare says, yes, absolutely, I will, if you do a good job. But if there's any funny business, then off with your head. And John Donne says, really? You're going to kill me? Shakespeare said, wow, no, it's just a phrase, isn't it? But maybe I will. Maybe I will kill you. So don't mess it up, all right? The time comes, eventually, after a 3-hour gala night of Shakespeare's work. Shakespeare opens up the chest and pushes John Donne onto the stage. John Donne clears his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, I am the writer John Donne, and it is with a great honour that I read to you a poem written by William Shakespeare for a very special person in the audience. You know who you are. He retrieves Sonnet 55 from his back pocket and reads, Sonnet 55. Marble or gold-plated monuments of princes will not outlive my bloody amazing poetry. You will shine more brightly in my poems than those shitty stones crumbled by slutty time. When war overturns these statues and battles uproot buildings, neither the god of war or his quick-burning fires will burn this record of you. Despite death or hostility, you will continue on. You will be praised for generations to come until the end of time. So, until Judgment Day, when you arise, you will live within my poetry and in the eyes of lovers who read it. So, there we are, Sonnet 55. And what would I pay to be at that gala night, eh? A Shakespeare gala night at the Globe. Brilliant. Anyway, until next week,